Next on Link TV. Latin Pulse, news and analysis from Latin America as seen by Latin American media, followed by a panel discussion on the issues. Next on Latin Pulse, only on Link TV.
The following program is an original production of Link TV.
Does a woman have the right to terminate the life of her unborn? Or are the rights of the baby to be protected at all costs?
Los bebés recién abortados nos los entreguen para darle sepultura humana.
And why are women's rights such a controversial issue in Latin American countries?
Empecé a sangrar, hemorragia. Yo en ese momento sentí que ya mi hijo no estaba vivo.
This and more coming up next on Latin Pulse. Hello and welcome to Pulso Latino. I'm your host, Marcos Gutierrez. Our first topic tonight: does life begin upon conception or when the baby comes out of the mother's womb? This has been a question asked by millions across the world when debating abortion. This has now come to the forefront of Mexican public opinion, where abortion has now been legalized in the country's capital.
El 26 de abril se autorizó la interrupción del embarazo en el Distrito Federal hasta la semana 12 de gestación. El pasado viernes venció el plazo para impugnar la ley. La PGR y la Comisión Nacional de Derechos Humanos argumentan violaciones a la Constitución en los términos en que se aprobó la reforma.
Lo que lamento profundamente es que el presidente de la Comisión de Derechos Humanos, que debiera ser un órgano, que esa es su función, de defensa de los derechos humanos, en este caso de las mujeres del Distrito Federal, se preste a este tipo de acción.
The Catholic Church has now gotten involved in this debate, threatening to excommunicate politicians and medical professions involved in legalizing and practicing abortion. Latinoamérica TV reports that this in turn has gotten the church in legal trouble.
Esto lo hará pese a que el Departamento del Interior está investigando a los prelados por su posible violación de las leyes mexicanas que les prohíben participar en política. Las autoridades de la capital, por su parte, han recordado que los médicos de los hospitales públicos no pueden negarse a practicar los abortos por cuestiones morales. Portavoces de la arquidiócesis dijeron que la Iglesia no dejará de hacer campaña contra el aborto. Asimismo, dijeron que los médicos y enfermeras que practiquen abortos y los diputados que apoyaron la legalización de esta práctica serán excomulgados. En el resto de México, el aborto solo está permitido en casos de violación, peligro para la vida de la madre y defectos graves del feto.
Political parties in Mexico have asked the church to reconsider the order to excommunicate its members who supported the abortion vote. Curiously enough, the church has changed its mind. Galavisión reports this has some politicians breathing a sigh of relief.
Yo estoy muy satisfecho, reitero, no tanto por la excomunión, me da gusto también porque soy católico, fui criado en la Iglesia Católica, pero más que nada porque es un mensaje para que podamos conciliar y para que podamos reconciliar a la gente.
Me parece una buena señal, me parece que nuevamente abona hacia la posibilidad de bajar el tono que se le ha dado a la discusión en estas últimas semanas.
Pro-lifers in Mexico say they will be praying outside hospitals in an effort to save babies from being aborted. This is part of what they've called the Operation Rescue.
A partir del lunes 7 de mayo recorrerán hospitales del gobierno del Distrito Federal en los que pedirán los nombres de médicos que realicen el término del embarazo. Por medio de megáfonos y bocinas anunciarán quiénes son y después rezarán un rosario.
Se pedirá al abortorio, es decir, al Hospital Distrito Federal, mediante un escrito sustentado en la Ley General de Salud, que los cuerpos de los bebés recién abortados nos los entreguen para darle sepultura humana.
Serrano Limón dijo que pedirán apoyo de la Secretaría de Seguridad Pública para evitar actos violentos en contra de su organización, aunque dijo todas las acciones serán pacíficas. Azucena Mendoza, Noticieros Televisa.
Brazil, the largest Catholic country in the world, practices about 1 million illegal abortions a year. Pope Benedict XVI was in Brazil recently, and Venezuela's Telesur reports the Pope didn't take too long to criticize that practice.
En sus primeras palabras al llegar a Brasil, Benedicto XVI recalcó su crítica por la interrupción del embarazo, algo en lo que muchos católicos coinciden.
Hay mucha gente con dificultades para comprender el verdadero sentido de la vida.
Un país en donde jóvenes convergen en una misma religión con diferentes puntos de vista.
Argentina's Tele 7 reports the Brazilian government didn't hesitate too long to respond to the Pope's criticism on the official government's support for the practice.
La respuesta del gobierno no se hizo esperar y no se dejó conmover por la presencia de Benedicto XVI. El tema del aborto en Brasil no es un tema religioso, sino de salud pública. El debate manifestó el carácter de la campaña del Papa luego del revés que supuso para su iglesia la despenalización del aborto en la Ciudad de México. Ese también fue el sentido del encuentro con los jóvenes en el Estadio Municipal de Pacaembu, vivido como una fiesta por los miles de fieles que se dieron cita en un número sensiblemente inferior al esperado.
With us in our San Francisco studio to explore this issue is Víctor Fierro, Latinos for Life Director, and Dolores Mijan, spokesperson for the San Francisco Catholic Church Diocese. Joining us from Washington, Maria Moreno from Choice USA, and José Carreño, correspondent from El Universal. That's a newspaper in Mexico. Ms. Mijan, it's hard to understand why the Catholic Church is opposed to both birth control and abortions. Can you please shed some light onto this?
I think to look at it, it's more of a positive. The church promotes the dignity of the human person, the dignity of women, the dignity of men, and the dignity of marriage and family. Abortion and birth control are, I would say, like a nuclear war to that entity and to the protection of marriage and to family. We've seen in our own country what abortion and birth control have done, with over 46 million children legally killed through abortion and over 25 million women having had abortions performed on them. And now, after almost 35 years of legal abortion, we're able to see the impact of that. It really goes to justify the church's position because you see the damage. We have an expression, 2 people go into an abortion clinic and 2 people come out, 1 wounded and 1 dead.
We're seeing that the Vatican and the Catholic Church is really out of step and not in sync at all with Catholic people around the world. You know, about 93% of Catholics in the world actually support the use of condoms to prevent things like HIV and sexually transmitted infections. And, you know, this is, something very serious that the Catholic Church has opposed. So I think when it comes to birth control and reproductive health services, the Catholic Church is definitely not in sync with where Catholic people are.
I would have to strongly disagree with you on that, Marina, respectfully, but 93, I don't know where you got the 93% figure, but the fact is the Catholic Church doesn't go into these countries and impose its law. The Catholic Church is a part of the culture in these countries. The Catholic Church is embraced by the people in these countries. And so if people choose to, the Catholic Church is the only institution that provides women real alternatives.
Give me 1 second, because both of you are speaking at the same time, and I think that Mr. José Carreño, has something to say. And then I'd like to ask one final question before we go to our next segment. Señor José Carreño, I'm sorry, you go ahead, please.
What Ms. Mijan says is correct. There are things that are imposed on their populations, including the Catholic Church. I mean, the Catholic Church, for instance, in Chile and in Colombia, it has imposed treaties, political, diplomatic treaties, that would stop, for instance, divorce, or have stopped divorce for years. They have political and diplomatic treaties that have stopped this kind of medical procedures as abortion. So having said that, I mean, if they are so sure that, Latin America does not need that kind of measures, why do not abandon that kind of compacts with Chile and Colombia instead of try to keep them no matter what?
Well, I'd like to ask just real quick, what treaties are you talking about? Are you talking about the UN treaties that the Holy See has opposed?
There are agreements called there are agreements between the Vatican and the Catholic and the Vatican and Colombia, the Vatican and Chile, that subject Chile and Colombia in these cases to keep the Catholic marriage and be a number of measurements. They are integrated in the culture, but they're imposed.
Okay, we'd like to have one final word from Víctor Fierro.
I also don't know the contracts that he's talking about. But the thing about the abortion law that's in Mexico right now, if you go to the Mexicano himself and ask him whether he's in favor of the abortion law, he'll tell you no. Planned Parenthood Planned Parenthood has put in tens of millions of dollars to make abortion legal in Mexico City, and they've done it.
Look, I have quite a few friends.
It has not been.
Excuse me,
I have friends too coming in from Mexico, and I speak to them here in this country, and they tell me they're not in favor of abortion. I see people that go to the abortion clinic in Fresno, California, and those people are pressured. They're pressured by economics, not because they want abortions.
Excuse me, would you like a better pressure than that?
Killing an innocent
in
baby,
Mexico, part of the culture and part of the
baby.
tradition, excuse me, part of Mexican tradition, if you want to call that a tradition, is how many kids you have, cuántos niños tienes, in which area.
Mire,
I mean, that is not a fair deal.
Mire, señor. La tradición de México es familia y vida.
Mire, la tradición de México es freedom also.
La cosa es que nosotros como mexicanos no matamos niños, y eso es lo que estamos haciendo. Planned Parenthood entra.
Perdón, ¿en qué momento son niños y en qué momento no son niños?
Lo que pasa con un aborto es la muerte de un niño. Estamos matando niños que no han hecho nada. Eso es la ley.
I think Maria Moreno, I think had something to say, please.
Thank you. I was going to say, I think that the reality is that we can only strengthen families by offering, the variety of reproductive and sexual health services that women are entitled to. I think that's how you make a strong community, by making sure that all of these healthcare options are available. The reality is, in Mexico, there are over 200,000 illegal abortions every year up until this law passed. So I think that, it really says something as to where Mexicans, are at when it comes to the matters of unintended pregnancies.
I'd like to ask one last question of every one of them, and we'll start here in the studio. When does the guy start coming in to have a say over the termination of a pregnancy? We'll start with Dolores Mijan, and I would like for you to give us a short answer, please, the short version.
Yeah, the short version.
When does the guy come in and do?
When did the guy? Can I make one quick statement? What Marina said about the 200.
Make a statement, but go ahead.
The number, the 200,000 of illegal abortions, is an estimate by the Alan Guttmacher Institute. That's not actually. That's not a real number. But anyway, as far as the guys, getting back to the guys, men actually in this country, men have no say, not even if you're married. Your wife can go and have an abortion and abort your child, and you have no say.
Are we going in that direction? Is there a movement towards that?
That's the reality in America. So that's...
No, I mean that we may have something to say. Is that changing?
I sure hope so.
I see no signs of that.
No signs of that.
I see no signs of the man ever having the right.
Do you feel that we should?
Definitely. It takes two people to make a pregnancy. Let's have both people involved in this.
Maria Moreno, your comments on that?
Thank you. I think in an ideal situation, the decision to terminate a pregnancy or the decision to take, what reproductive health care options, ideally would be between the man and the woman to have the discussion. But that's in an ideal situation. We know that that's not always the case. Sometimes women become pregnant and the man isn't even around. Or, the man may not know, the male partner may not know, what the health burden is on the woman who, is expected to carry the pregnancy to term. So I think that, ultimately I do trust a woman to make the best decision for herself.
Jose Carreño, you have the last word.
I think it would be an ideal situation if everybody were to agree on that, man and woman, and the man were there also to take care of the kid and take a hand on the education and the bringing up of the kid. But that's a big if also.
A big if. Thank you all for your input in this particular issue. Of course, we could have gone on for 2 more hours talking about it. In just a moment, we'll explore the issue of women's rights, and we would like to thank Victor Fierro, Director of Latinos for Life, for his participation on our panel today. Latin America is commonly known as the macho capital of the world, where women are treated as second-class citizens. This may or may not be true in some parts of the region. What is true, though, is that women's rights are often violated for political, social, or economic reasons, just such as the case of 2 sisters who were allegedly tortured along with their children by a Venezuelan soldier who may be hiding right here in the United States.
Más de 30 años han pasado.
y las hermanas Esquivel no olvidan el asesinato de sus compañeros y el día cuando fueron detenidas. Brenda cuenta que fue torturada vilmente durante 12 días, a pesar que tenía 8 meses de embarazo.
Por orden de Posada Carriles, que en aquel tiempo lo llamaban el comisario Basilio, él dio la orden de que mataran al niño, diciendo estas palabras de que esa semilla hay que matarla antes de que nazca. Y así fue como se cumplió esa orden y me dieron una patada y empecé a sangrar, hemorragia. Yo en ese momento sentí que ya mi hijo no estaba vivo.
Marlene no escapó de estas torturas. Recuerda como si fuera ayer el momento en que su hija, de 20 días de nacida, fue quemada con cigarrillos.
El trauma de ver a mi hermana torturada con aquella hemorragia de sangre. Y bueno, la niña estremeciéndose en mis brazos buscando oxígeno o cuando le quemaban las piernas. Eso, cada vez que lo recuerdo, lo vivo el momento.
En esta humilde casa, las hermanas Esquivel solo claman justicia.
Para que el mundo sepa y la gente sepa todas las atrocidades que hizo él, como torturar a una niña de 20 días de nacido, quemándole las piernas, tapándole la naricita para que no pudiera respirar, tratando de quitármela de mis brazos para ahogarla en una bañera.
Posada Carriles, the man accused of committing those atrocities, has been charged in Venezuela of planting a bomb on a Cuban airliner that killed everybody on board. He escaped from Venezuela and is now living here in the United States. The Venezuelan government is demanding his extradition. As is the case in other parts of the world, in Latin America, women are often paid less in the labor market. Costa Rica's RTN Noticias reports that domestic workers are demanding equal pay and equal rights in the marketplace, as they feel they are working excessively long days.
Un alegrón de burro. Así calificó la presidenta de la Asociación de Trabajadoras Domésticas el fallo de la Sala Cuarta que deroga algunos incisos del Código de Trabajo referentes a ellas por considerarlos inconstitucionales. El desencanto es porque la jornada laboral quedó en 12 horas.
Porque no estamos en igualdad con los demás trabajadores y no estaríamos equiparadas en el concepto de igualdad y de género, ¿verdad?
Lo que sí valoran estas trabajadoras es que se prohibiera a los patronos exigir horas extra aparte de ese horario y que se determinara un día de descanso durante los feriados en lugar de la mitad de la jornada.
And in Peru, some women have decided to break away from tradition and have gone out seeking the same rights and the same jobs often reserved for men. Peru's América TV reports some of them have even ventured into heavy construction work.
¿Quieren saber lo que es una mujer? Síganme.
Domina el tractor hasta el asombro. Trabaja para la región Callao. A Maritza Oliva le tomó 4 años vencer el miedo a esta máquina. Debió hacerlo para llevar el pan a su casa. Su singular empleo, confiesa, siempre atrae miradas.
Te aplauden, te dicen amiga, qué bien, me dice chévere, una mujer y así, ¿no? Y eso es lo que te da la alegría, te da.
Sus compañeras también son haces del volante. El trabajo es duro, pero no dejan de lado la coquetería. Así, sudando, se ganan la vida. Vencen al machismo con trabajos en donde hace unos años no habrían sido admitidas, pero que con su desempeño y talento, hoy la vida les sonríe.
Welcome back. With us in our San Francisco studios now is Almudena Bernabeu, a lawyer for the Center for Justice and Accountability. I'd like to ask you, are women's rights a new term or a new concept in Latin America?
The two words are very interesting. I think women's rights in Latin America is not a new concept. It's not legally and it's not sociologically, but I think it's a new reality. And that, I guess, is putting it down to what is everyday happening and what really women are having access to and how they're living their lives. And I think the ability for women to, for instance, organize, to choose things that may be taken for granted in the North or in other countries. It's just a very recent reality. Politics, for instance, women are now having active roles in different countries, Bolivia, Ecuador, hopefully in the future in Guatemala. So yes, I think it's a new reality, I would say.
We have Maria Moreno from Choice USA in Washington, and we've just had a lively discussion about abortion. Maria, is abortion a human rights issue, a right to life issue, or a women's rights issue?
Well, abortion is absolutely a human rights issue. When we talk about abortion as a human right, what we're really saying is that, you know, each person has the right to live their life the way that they want, and, you know, to live, you know, with all of the things that are accorded to healthy people and to healthy communities. Again, it's about providing all of these reproductive health care options for women and for their families, so that they can create the best possible community for themselves.
Wanted to comment on what Maria said, this whole idea of abortion being a human right. It is a human rights issue, but not in the way that it's used as a way to justify abortion, as an abortion right. The fact is, no other right can be exercised if you don't have the right to life. And when you look at what we have created in our society is pitting an unborn child, pitting a woman against her unborn child. And this is a real violation of feminism. This is a real violation of women's rights, because a woman should have the right to be able to have her child. A woman should be able to have the right to say, I need access to medical care, I need clean drinking water, I need an education, I need to be able to feed my family, not at the expense of her ability to be a mother. And when you talk about all of these programs do not. When you go into a clinic in Guatemala, where I go up in the mountains, I do medical missions up in the mountains in Guatemala, you go into the clinic there, that's a USAID clinic, and the only thing that you can get for free is a contraceptive. If people need a Band-Aid even, they need to come to the mission to the Fathers, where Mother Teresa's priests are.
Maria, please, I'm sorry, Maria had the word first, and then we'll go here in the studio to Almudena Bernabeu. Platícanos, Maria.
Yeah, sorry. I think that when I say it's a human rights issue, I think it's about creating the best possible world for women to raise their families in, to raise their children in. And of course that means, you know, providing a clean and healthy environment, providing, you know, quality health care, providing economic justice. But I think that it also includes, you know, all of those reproductive health options that women should be entitled to, such as contraception, you know, controlling the destiny of what their family is going to look like, you know, choosing the timing and spacing of their children. You know, women really know best what's, you know, the right thing for their families. And I think that to say otherwise really undermines, you know, women's intelligence and what women, you know, contribute to society.
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm the lawyer in the room, and I should just put some order here. No, from the beginning, the reason is I actually am in a position between the two of you guys. I am absolutely pro-choice, and I think the talking too lightly of the right to choose for an abortion as a human right, we're actually creating confusion. What is definitely is a right that I don't think is necessarily fundamental. I think is fundamental is for women to choose what, according to their personal circumstances, is what route to take. I think a blanket statement that the right to have an abortion is a fundamental right, I think it's I want to say deontologically, which is a funky word, but I mean it's wrong. And I think the right to choose, and starting from the women's right to choose, and then from there developing and understanding the women is a majority number of minorized or made minor or minimized in the context of society from the perspective of women's right in their position, I think can go all the way to be fundamental. But they just have to be careful with the human right.
I'm sorry, could we go to Dolores, and then we'll go to El Licenciado, who's also waiting in Washington, Jose Carreño. Please, Dolores.
Yeah, the idea, women are, as you use the word ontology, there's an ontological reality to women. We are built to we are built as women, and we're different from men in that one of the basic differences is that we have the ability to have children. It's not that is, I mean that in no way that women are breeders, but women have that special gift, and that when a baby is born, that's a happy occasion for people. And so the idea of reproductive, for reproductive health, a crisis pregnancy does not always mean, and invariably does not mean, a crisis birth. The problem that women are faced with when they have an unplanned pregnancy
cannot be separated. I don't think. I mean, you just said that in Guatemala, the only thing that is free is a contraceptive, precisely because, unfortunately, pregnancy becomes the burden. So of course the birth can be a happy experience, but you cannot separate sociologically and responsibly pregnancy from birth without making the mother a victim.
But when you say pregnancy, it's a dehumanizing thing. When you say birth, you're talking about a human being. And so that is the problem, is that when you say a pregnancy, you can treat it like a disease, which actually the CDC does try and classify pregnancy as a disease. And so by classifying it as a disease, it's something to be treated and eliminated. You can't say the same thing about the birth. The birth of a child is hope. It's hope for our world.
Abortion is a possibility, an experience that is involved in the right to choose.
Nonsense. It's a medical procedure to end the life of a growing embryo.
El licenciado José Carreño would like to have to say something. Señor José Carreño, please.
If I may, I think that maybe the first point of the argument should be if the woman has the right or not to decide to get pregnant or not. And I believe that she does have that right. If we want to stop abortion, because it is unhealthy, immoral, or whatever, then we should recognize the right of the woman to decide if she gets pregnant or not. I think that's a basic point.
There's one thing to have the right to vote, and another thing is first exercise to be able to implement it or even care for it. But you have the right. So women need to have the right to choose how they're going to pursue, if they're, according to their conditions and context and circumstances, what to do. And then we talk about how to end or not that life. So that's abortion. It's the right to choose, guys.
Muchas gracias.
The right to
Thank
choose
you.
what? I'm sorry, the right to choose what? Abortion?
To hold a pregnancy. Or
so we're
stop
talking
a
about
pregnancy.
the complete sentence is to choose abortion. So it is an abortion issue choice. Okay, thank you.
Damas y caballeros, this is all the time we have. I trust you enjoyed today's program. I'd like to thank our guest here in San Francisco, Almudena Bernabeu from the Center for Justice and Accountability, and Dolores Meehan, spokesperson for the San Francisco Catholic Church Archdiocese. And in Washington, D.C., Maria Moreno from Choice USA, and Jose Carreno, correspondent for the Universal newspaper from Mexico. I would also like to thank you at home or on the web for being with us today. We would also like to thank American University in Washington, D.C. and the students at the School of Communication who are helping with the research for this program. Join us next time when we take a closer look at Latin America through the eyes of Latin America media. For more information about Pulso Latino and Latin America, log on to linktv.org. My name, Marcos Gutierrez. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time here on Latin Pulse.
Latin Pulse was made possible thanks to the generous contribution from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. Pulso Latino ha sido posible gracias a la generosa contribución de la Fundación John D. y Catherine T. MacArthur.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs that connect you to the world.